tonight.
He was John Gotti's right-hand man, a killer with no conscience, until he switched sides, spilled the mob's secrets, and helped put Gotti away. But to these women, he'll always be a murderer.
His first murder was
my brother.
Your brother?
Yeah, that was his first murder.
We always knew from day one that nobody would have killed my father except Sammy.
Now the families of the 19 men he killed want to stop Sammy Gravano from making millions telling his story.
As long as it doesn't go to Sammy, that is our pure satisfaction.
But then, Don Fratangelo with the controversial memoirs of a murderer.
From Studio 3B in Rockefeller Center, here is Jane Pauley.
Good evening. 19 men. He either killed or admitted taking part in their murders. But that's not what Sammy the Bull Gravano is remembered for. He's known as the man who helped put John Gotti in prison for life. But in spite of the blood on his own hands, Sammy Gravano's testimony earned him a second chance, a short prison term, and a new identity. Now, Gravano is ready to tell his stories of murder and the mob again, in a new book that, according to some reports, could earn him big money. But as Don Fratangelo tells us, the survivors of Gravano's victims say it's time to stop giving the bull second chances.
Gravano cut a deal to get out from under the charges by testifying against
Gotti's fourth trial, and today the jury came back with a guilty verdict on all 13 counts.
Break the mob code of silence and take the stand as a witness for the prosecution.
He was vulgar. He was animalistic.
He was disgusting. That's what she means by animalistic. Somebody that spits indoors, that's animalistic.
I don't even want to refer to him as a person. I don't want to refer to him as an animal either, because that, to me, is disgracing them.
He decided who lived and who died.
He is Salvatore Gravano. Known since his grade school days for picking on others, he earned the nickname Sammy the Bull. For 2 decades, he was one of the most feared men in organized crime, murdering his way up the ladder to the highest rungs of New York's Gambino crime family. But then the Bull turned rat, becoming a federal witness in one of the biggest mob trials ever. It was Gravano's testimony that put away this country's most powerful crime boss, John Gotti. Gravano got federal protection and only a 5-year prison term in exchange for his testimony, which detailed the men Gravano killed and those who helped him do it. In all, Gravano murdered 19 men, including their father.
He was the support of the family. And when you take away the foundation, the building crumbles.
Her father.
He was a loving man. He was a beautiful person.
Her father.
He was a Little League coach. He was very wrapped up in his children.
Her brother.
He was 26 years old, 2 small kids, got up every day, went to work.
And her brother.
Michael wasn't a kid that was out in the streets. He was always into athletics and all of that.
Although most of these women deny the allegation, federal authorities claim their fathers and brothers all had ties to organized crime. But for these women, even raising the issue misses the point.
Whether these men were good guys or bad guys is not the issue. The issue is he's turning around and trying to profit from telling his story of being a lunatic.
All of these men, they were not altar boys. We are not professing them to be altar boys. But their lives mattered.
Jackie Colucci was the first to lose a family member at the hands of Sammy Gravano. In 1970, Sammy the Bull shot and killed her brother, Joey.
They took him for a ride, and Sammy sat in the back of the car with 5 bullets, and my brother starting at the head. And the next morning, Sammy, Tommy, the boys all came over, crying, we're going to find out who did this to Joey.
A few years after Sammy fired those shots, Roseanne Nass's brother, Michael DeBat, moved back to Brooklyn to help run their ailing father's bar. It was there Michael met Sammy the Bull.
And my father told Michael once, stay with this guy, stick with this guy. This guy's going to be big someday. Father didn't know those words were going to come back to bite him.
Michael developed a bad habit, drugs. His sister believed Sammy worried Michael might rat him out if arrested on a drug charge. And then Michael got worried that Sammy was worried.
2 weeks before he got killed, he came to my house like 5:30 in the morning, said, well, watch after my daughter, be a part of her life. And then 2 weeks later, he was killed, Michael.
He couldn't get out.
There is no way to get out except the way he got out.
Laura and Karen Garofalo's father, Edward, locked horns with Gravano in the early 1980s when Edward reportedly told Sammy he would pay a construction bill like every legitimate businessman within 60 days.
Well, that was way too long for Sammy. And he came down to the office and he said, I think I'm just going to take your car. My dad drove a Rolls Royce and Sammy wanted this car. And my dad said, over my dead body, are you going to take this car?
And what did Sammy do to your father, ultimately?
He was leaving his house, walking to his car, and he was gunned down. 8, 9 bullets in the back of his head, back, neck.
Cindy DiBernardo, who never even met Sammy Gravano, didn't know what happened to her dad until Gravano testified he ordered the hit.
I saw my father every single day of my life. I mean, speaking to him at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and him telling me I'll be home at 6 o'clock and then just never seeing him again, ever. I would have given my eyesight, I would have given body parts to have my father walk through that door again. And I'll never have that.
And in the testimony, Sammy refers to your dad as a friend.
A friend? He considered her his niece. He killed her father. So you tell me, what do his words mean? What do they mean? Friend coming out of his mouth is garbage.
You went to Sammy after your dad was missing.
Because a while back, my father said, if you ever need anything, go to Uncle Sammy.
Gravano was a familiar face around the Melito house, so when her dad was missing, she turned to this old family friend.
He said, but you know what? Let me send the word out right now. My word will be like a whisper. And then pretty soon I'll shake buildings if your dad doesn't turn up. But don't worry, Princess. Everything's going to be okay.
But everything was not okay. 3 days earlier, as Sammy sat playing cards a few feet away from her dad, Gravano's associate shot Louis Melito once in the back of the head and once under the chin. Dina still remembers the promise Sammy made her.
He says, I'll find you, Dad. Don't worry.
To this day, the bodies of Louis Melito and Robert DiBernardo are still missing. What happened to the fathers and brothers of these women could have remained a secret forever. But then the FBI arrested Gravano and his boss, John Gotti, and charged them with murder. Twice before, Gotti had been acquitted, embarrassing the government. This time, to ensure conviction, prosecutors say they chose the lesser of two evils and cut a deal with confessed mass murderer Sammy Gravano.
Federal authorities have said that it was very painful for them.
My heart bleeds.
Yeah.
They patted him nicely on the head and said, good boy.
Yeah.
So you tell me, how difficult must that have been for them?
All of us were victimized first by Sammy Gravano. Then we were victimized by the legal system, so that's twice. And then it was surfaced in the newspapers that he's writing a book, and that would have been a third time.
Reports that Gravano had received a 6-figure advance for his memoirs united these living victims of Sammy the Bull. All feel that Gravano has earned enough blood money from the deaths of their loved ones.
Did Sammy make money off your father's death?
Of course he did. He acquired all my father's businesses.
Did Sammy make money off your father's death?
Oh, the second my father was killed, he grabbed an attaché case full of cash that my father was going to pay for my furniture for the house that he had just built me.
Gravano didn't acquire anything for the murder of Roseanne Mass's brother. Instead, he consoled the grieving family with a gift.
You got $500 from Sammy?
At the wake. I even have a little book. You know, when you're at a wake and you have the booklets, it's right there. Mr. and Mrs. Sam Gravano, $500.
What did you do with that $500?
We burned it.
See, Sammy had to kill in order to obtain any type of money or any type of business. See, on his own, to think it out and physically do it with his hands without a gun in it, he couldn't. He didn't have the brain capacity to earn a penny without killing
for it. What's more, Sammy's not even doing the heavy lifting on his own book. Instead, it's being written by Peter Moss, the author of bestsellers like Serpico and the Valachi Papers. Moss refused to do an interview before the publication of the Gravano book, but he is quoted in a New York newspaper as saying, "In this book there are no innocent victims. They're all mob-connected killers."
That's Peter Moss. He's selling a book, so we can't take our anger out on him. May he sell his book. May the profits not go to Sammy Gravano.
Absolutely.
Just finding the profits may be a problem. The deal was made in England, not with Sammy Gravano, according to the publisher HarperCollins, but with Peter Moss. So to press their case, the women have hired a bull of their own, attorney Ron Kuby.
HarperCollins apparently has learned a great deal about Sammy Gravano and about the way he does business. In fact, they've structured this literary deal like a mafia operation with lots of layers of insulation between the people who are making the money and the people who are paying the money, in a conscious effort to evade and avoid the Son of Sam law.
The Son of Sam law, which could be the basis of a lawsuit by the women, allows victims or their families to recover any profits made by the criminal from the crime itself, including writing about it. For Kuby, this is not the first time he's gone up against Gravano. In 1992, Kuby and his former partner William Kunstler tried unsuccessfully to have Gotti's conviction overturned, a conviction made possible by the testimony of Sammy Gravano.
He murdered for greed, he murdered out of bitterness, he murdered out of anger, and I certainly don't believe that he has written this book solely in order to enlighten the American people about his role in La Cosa Nostra. He wrote this book to become a member of the Millionaire Murderers Club, and that's something we're going to stop.
If Jeffrey Dahmer wanted to tell his stories of what he did to these innocent people, there'd be outrage, disgust. So what makes this any different? He's a mass murderer, like any other mass murderer, so he should not profit from this.
And that is the cause which has brought these women together, a cause so strong they've agreed to overlook some dark rumors.
But and I know it's a sensitive topic, but some of you know that Sammy didn't pull the trigger on every one of these deaths, right?
Right.
Is it possible that the fathers of some of you or the brothers of some of you could have pulled the trigger on someone else?
We acknowledge that. We had to leave that at the door, and that's where it remained.
In a strange way, these women have formed a sisterhood out of their pain. They are strong, united, and defiant.
You want to call this organized crime? You want to call this a mob? That's it. We are crime victims. We're our own mob. And we are going to fight until this man gets what he deserves.
Is Gravano making a lot of money from this book or any money at all? Today, the author, Peter Moss, told Dateline he's not giving Gravano any money. And the publisher, HarperCollins, said only that its agreement is with Moss and that there's nothing unlawful about the deal. Meantime, Gravano must be pretty comfortable these days. He recently left the security of the Witness Protection Program.